Yo, what's up, jazz guitar friends? Larry Tamanini here with Jazz Guitar Under 5 Minutes. You just heard me playing through rhythm changes. You know, rhythm changes is probably one of the toughest things that I think you can play over when you're playing jazz. See, Hershey totally agrees with me. Rhythm changes is way more of a challenge than a tune like Giant Steps, and it presents a really unique challenge in that it's really difficult to be creative in that kind of somewhat rigid-ish chord structure. So we're going to talk about making the chord structure less rigid and just some tips to play over this, right? So you heard me start out with playing this head. It's called Ready and Able, right? This is going to be what I like to use as my example. And I picked this head because, number one, I love Jimmy Smith. It was one of the first sort of like non-real book tunes that I learned by ear. So it was like I sort of learned this tune the right way from listening to it and then just sort of like playing along, right? And the stuff I noticed when I listened and learned it music that way, it had a more authentic feel than like if I was looking at a tune like Oleo in the real book, right? When you look at the changes to Oleo, the first chord's like a B flat major, and I think it's like a G minor, and then a C, right? If you're thinking, first of all, if you're on your solo and you're thinking about that first chord as a B flat major all the time, like you're really kind of playing yourself into a corner, right? And the biggest problem that a lot of, especially guitar players, I notice, they sort of will get married to those first set of changes of rhythm changes that they learn, right? So you're just playing this G, this 1, 6, 2, 5, and then maybe you're doing this, and then going back here, and then maybe you do this kind of thing. Go to an E flat major, E diminished, and then you kind of 3, 6, 2, 5 here. So let's talk about the chord structure of I Got Rhythm, right? Especially the soloing part. The way I look at this, it's a really long way from 1 to get to 4, and then you kind of walk up to the 5 there. You know, it's almost like a bebop St. Thomas in a lot of ways in B flat. And if I was to like really simplify these changes, I wouldn't really be thinking anything other than like 1 going to 4, right? And my first 4 bars are basically 1, 6, 2, 5. I'm going to do it again. And then I'm going to go back to this 1 and do something like this. Let's do that again. I got this 1, 6, 2, 5. 1, 6, 2, 5. 1 inversion, 4, your diminished chord, right? And then pedal on that. Now, there's not a lot of rhythm changes that get comped like that. Can you comp it like that? Absolutely. Can you think of that way when you're soloing too? Sure, absolutely. Something like that. And it's a really easy way to kind of simplify this tune, right? The stock changes that everybody pretty much learns is like, you're playing like some kind of B flat here, 6, 2, 5. Sometimes it goes 3, 6, right? And then here you sort of have a 2, 5, a 4. There's nothing wrong with that. If I went 2, 5, a 4 major, I have this. Now there's just so many different things you can do, right? So if you're playing by yourself, a great exercise is, can I change up my A sections, right? So here's one way to just sort of get your A section going. So maybe this is what I played. That time, I'm just not going to go. So I did a couple different things. Maybe the next time I go through, I might go. Right? Nothing wrong with that. I kind of like going back to that E flat 7 to this A flat, and then sort of like working the way back down, 3, 6, 2, 5, right? But maybe I'm not going to do that next time. Maybe I'm just going to play straight. And then, so one of the greatest resources you can have as a musician, right, is Jamie Aebersold, and for rhythm changes tunes. Jamie Aebersold came out with this volume rhythm changes workout, and I think on page 26, I got it printed out right here. It says section A variants. Look at it. It's like a menu. You can look at this and be like, you know what? I think I'm gonna have the 15, right? And I think maybe I'll have some of this F pedal goodness, which I played on my maybe 8 bars or a little bit of my thing. So let's talk about that. So on this one, it has a walk up. And then just kind of going back down, right? There's so much that you can do. And then the second time when you have a pedal, that's how I went, sort of did a little bit of a Wes Montgomery thing, but these pedals are cool, right? And then, right, sort of like has that 4-on-6 thing. You could do, again, that's the real fun part and the challenge when you're playing solo is trying to make those decisions. It's a choose your own adventure situation. And just like the A section, the bridge, I think the bridge is the most challenging part to play on this because it's tough to keep it going over dominant chords this long, right? And you might want to start out by playing like a sequenced idea. Whoops, right? So I just kind of like worked my way up from my third. Also, another thing that you can do is just kind of make it a 2-5, right? D minor, G, I'm gonna go G minor, C7. So why would anybody do that, right? Well, to create like some tension and resolution, right? It's tough to keep the tension going for a while. So this minor chord kind of like cuts it, in the very beginning. Oh, I guess I should be here. Right? I don't always like thinking like that, So what I like to do with the bridge is, again, I think just the challenge of making these dominant chords sound interesting is good enough for me. So I want to talk about how to weight a dominant chord, right? And not W-A-I-T. We're not waiting for something to happen, right? you have to go after the music a little bit. It's not going to like not going to play like this magical sequence of notes, and the John Coltrane bebop god's going to come out and give you a little turbo power up. You have to meet the music halfway, right? So I like the idea of, maybe starting out like with the first part of this dominant chord, maybe not being altered. And then when I get to this G7, I threw a little bit of out notes in there, just some lower neighbor stuff. I wanted to pick something there where I could really illustrate weighting and altered sound on a dominant chord, right? Sometimes it's cool to just like start out and be able to play ideas that aren't like super, especially if you're not accustomed to like playing dominant chords that long, or like a cycle like this. You want to shoot for simple ideas, okay? And the idea of maybe playing something like really in is like a really good idea, but you get to a point where like you have to have some kind of tension, Rhythm changes, right? Such a challenge to just sort of get the hang of those dominant chords. I would always sort of lean on the blues scale, right? Because I didn't understand how to weight dominant chords that well. And at least if I stuck to the blues scale, like I could sort of give the illusion that I knew it was happening. But I really sort of got exposed when I got to that bridge. You can kind of like, you can do that kind of stuff, bluesy ideas. And, that can only go so far too, right? Because at some point, like, you want to be able to play like a line. And nowhere should it be easier to do over these dominant chords, but for whatever reason, it can be really tricky. And we're not trying to like reinvent the wheel. There's so many options too. And I like the idea of just being able to weight the layers of how much I'm going to alter the chord, right? Right? Pretty chill, Again, like maybe somewhere in the middle has a little bebop vocabulary in there that's just great, Monk quote, always a winner, right? There's that half whole diminished line that I wanted to just, kind of gets that sound happening. Really creates a lot of pull. So you kind of have like not a lot of pull, medium pull, monk kind of dissonance, a lot of pull, right? So you're kind of weighting those layers in dominant chords. I think that was really useful because I had no idea what I was doing trying to connect those chords. People would say like play guide tones, and that's great. That's just kind of like half of it, right? Now the final thing that I want to talk about, like once you sort of like can break down those changes and understand how to like build on top of them, the next step really is going to be putting the rhythm back in rhythm changes. You heard me play over a tune called Ready and Able, right? I like the idea and the challenge of playing a bebop head sort of a cappella style with the guitar. And that way you're going to focus on your rhythm. Now you could do this on any tune, but maybe it's a little bit more useful on a rhythm changes, right? And what I say by like really zoning in on the rhythm on rhythm changes is like you're really trying to master those eighth notes and upbeats and downbeats, right? It's really important to me to like come in on the end of three and communicate that to the listeners and the people I'm playing with where I'm at, right? So if I was like go, it'd be really important for me to like be able to play that phrase in time, especially like from the pickup into the melody. Well, it's hard to do, right? If you can do it once or twice, try to like keep it going. Very difficult to just take a little bit of a line and like really work it. And that's how you kind of put together the whole melody, you know, little bits, phrase by phrase, really owning those eighth notes. And like especially the ends going in, you know, end to four going into one. The biggest challenge, obviously, especially if you're playing anything like medium up, is when there is like a tune like this where the bridge, those whole notes or anything with like a tie on it, really tough to like keep, stay on the keep your time straight. But you keep working on it, and you'll get it together. So all right, jazz guitar friends, check it out. Rhythm changes. Don't be afraid to play more than one set of chords, right? You're not married to these changes. You probably don't want to be leaning on like a B flat major or E flat major too much too, because it's just so hard to create tension on those chords where you need to push off on. Also, being able to just play the melody pretty straight, really own those eighth notes, super important. And once you put that together, you pick a couple rhythm changes heads and try to apply this, and your time's going to get better. Your feel's going to get better too, and you'll probably come up with some more ideas. So all right, jazz guitar friends, keep swinging bebop. If you made it this far, please hit that like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate all the support. Thanks for hanging out.